So the problem for them, not the inner circle, the iron circle. The problem is that not that they're ballistic skill 3 and not that they're only a 5 up because of their shield. Because when you put them with base to base with one another, they go to a 4 up in vulnerable save. So that's not bad. But
I mean, they hit, like, if they hit hard, like, correct?
If they hit like a fucking freight train.
Right.
The issue is their weapon skill 4.
Right. That's, yeah, okay. And you also have to have something, aren't they slow as shit? And you have to have
they're
something.
moving 4. They're heavy. Okay. They can't run.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not terrible.
There's a lot more things that you would probably spend points on, though, in that army than them, correct?
So they're like 150 or 100. So they're 150 base for one, then 135 each additional. If I was gonna have to take a close combat unit for the Iron Warriors, I would not include Iron Circle. I would grab onto the Dominators because the Dominators
I gotta figure out what the fuck this dog's freaking out about.
Are significantly better.
If it makes you feel any better, John, we're not hearing it, so.
Yeah, he's sitting behind me tap dancing, freaking out.
Hey, John. You sent that to me in a .mov file.
Yeah.
And the program I use apparently does not like a .mov file. And when I play it from not Google Drive, all I get is sound, no video. But it works fine in Google Drive. Thank you to the all-power Jeff Bezos.
You export it as something else?
No. Because all it will do is let me download it, the .mov file, and all I have is audio converting, not video converting programs.
Okay, I'll see if I can find something to fix it.
Okay. Because I can use OBS to record it, but it will probably look like dog shit at that point.
Right. According to them, I forgot to feed them, so I just said fuck it and fed them again.
Well, that's what my dog always says, even if I'm literally feeding him while he's saying I'm hungry.
Yeah. Yeah, well, sometimes it's just better to get fed.
I fed the dog delicious pork belly burnt ends today.
I gave them some of the Chick-fil-A knockoff that I made. Enjoyed the hell out of that earlier.
Mm-hmm. So, John,
so we're on 97?
97, yes, sir.
Yeah, I can do it.
All right. Hey, I got a question for y'all. Do you know what a code open is?
Yes.
Hey, congratulations. We just did one. John, kick it off.
The Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast is dedicated to all things Horus Heresy. This podcast delves into the grimdark universe where Primarchs clash, legions rise, and loyalties fracture faster than a Land Raider's track. But it's not just about the lore of the Horus Heresy. The Accountabilibuddies also explore the gaming side of things, from painting and modeling tips to product reviews and ideas to help you in your hobby. So, whether you're a seasoned Forge World veteran or a fresh-faced scout, this podcast is your Vox channel to the galaxy. Expect discussions on lore, modeling, gaming, and maybe even the shenanigans that your hosts somehow seem to find their way into. Remember, in the grim darkness of the far future, there are only two things you can count on: heresy and your trusty Accountabilibuddies.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Heresy Accountabilibuddies Podcast, episode 97. I'm your host, John, and tonight I'm joined by
Duncan,
Jack,
and the wonderful, sexy-sounding Jamie.
We've got a little bit of Heresy news. We've got a little bit of Heresy discussions and a lot of hobby to get to. But before we go there, let's take a break for our sponsors. Thank you very much, sponsors. We appreciate you helping us keep the lights on, as well as all of our lovely patrons who are going to get access to see some of the fanciness that I've been working on lately, which involves I went through and made all of the posters for the terrain. So Blake's terrain table is just about finished up. I want to put some rubble pumice and put some scattered bits of word bearers and some other stuff all over the terrain. But other than that, it's pretty much done. I did the big Space Marine in copper and went ahead and aged it up with some of the acid etching stuff that I use. I've got a blown up white scarred dreadnought that I need to add some gore effects to and some cabling and stuff like that. And then pretty much done with that. The Militarum Murphy's Instagram, all his posts, went ahead and pulled those down, made a big poster set of those, and have been gluing those to buildings. I pulled some from Underhive Art. He does a lot of like little just Imperial posters and, keep calm, carry on, loose links, sink ships, stuff like that, or loose lips, sink ships, and stuff like that. And then obviously our posters are all over the terrain. It was kind of hard to stop putting the posters on, to be honest. Once I figured out how to do it, you really just go through, print them on a laser color printer in normal paper, cut them out fairly nicely, which is probably the thing that I suffer from the most, and then dip them in watered down PVA glue or Elmer's glue. If you have Woodland Scenics, they make that kind of spray scenic cement that you could brush on or spray on to use for all their grass and stuff. You just dip it straight in that and then put it on the terrain. Use a Q-tip or paper towels to pull up any tide marks, and it's basically done. Took me about 2 hours to do all 12 buildings, and each one's got between 4 and 12 posters, kind of depending on the size. I've done some that are folded up. I've got some that are draped over windowsills and other things. So I just kind of had fun putting them all over the place. Other than that, I also managed to get some Volkite troopers built during our last Hobby Wednesday. And I also got, while I was cleaning up to find some of the parts for these buildings, I found some old Kickstarter robots that I'd gotten that are based on some of the old Rogue Trader Chaos robot artwork. And I went ahead and got those built up and pinned to a base and primed those, as well as some unhelmeted Marine heads that I've been thinking about using for sim conversions. And that's really everything I've been able to get done this week. What about Jack?
Ooh. I did a thing. I edited a podcast, and then I passed it over to Jamie.
There ain't a whole lot to pass on to me. I've been super busy this week between working long hours at work, soccer practice with teenage hoodlums, and stuff going on at home. What I have done is I have started working on some 3D prints for people that have requested them. Unfortunately, I missed Hobby Hangout this week because of commitments with the family. So I guess that's it for me. I can pass it on to Duncan because he's the only one left.
Yep, and I like going last because I got a lot of stuff done.
I forgot. I did get something. I got a little stuffed animal watcher in the dark from the Tomy 40K stuff.
Yeah, I got one too. I gave it to a friend of mine for his birthday last week, and then I picked up a servo skull. Kind of neat looking.
Yeah. Sorry, forgot, Duncan.
It's all good, brother. It's all good. So a lot of stuff that I got done. I have one new squad of the Rampagers. I have all the gold done on them, so that's all that I got done. But I did that during the hobby hangout, along with finishing up white retouches on some dudes who needed it, because apparently I was blind or just plain stupid when I did them beforehand, and I did not realize that I missed great patches of white on the armor and didn't have them complete. So I got that done on those guys. Then I did some more reorganizing stuff in the house in the basement for where I do all my hobby stuff. and I got a little bit more hobby space, as it were, ready to go. So that was my work.
I
So
have
honestly, I didn't really get a lot done.
an update on hobby progress quickly.
Oh,
This
please,
is
Jack, do
this
tell
is
us.
this is live action. I figured out that if you upload a file to YouTube and then you can download it from YouTube, it will put it in the correct format that you need to make a video for our YouTube channel at Heresy Accountability Buddies at YouTube. That could have been
all right.
a shameless plug, but it is what it is.
And that's I'm glad you did your shameless plug, sir.
And the reason you're doing that video is because everything I explained earlier on how to make posters, I put into a quick 4-minute tutorial on literally how I made the things from start to finish.
I thought it was because I was the YouTube henchman.
Yeah,
Well, you are,
sure.
yeah. You're the YouTube henchman, but they've got to know why you're the YouTube henchman.
Because nobody else wanted to do it. I thought that's why I was the YouTube henchman.
I mean, that might be a reason as well. Yeah.
I tell you what, Jack, I'll top that. I learned something this week as well. So
What
I've
did-
been buying. There's a Japanese convenience store by me, and they have this thing called coffee sugar. And I thought it was just sugar you put in your coffee, and so I was buying it and putting it in my coffee. And today, I realized that it's not just sugar; it's actually instant coffee.
I was like, is it crack?
It's coffee. I've been sweetening my coffee with coffee.
Yo, dog, I heard you like coffee, so I'm going to put coffee in your coffee to coffee your coffee.
Wait, so you're telling me you're just pretty much buying coffee flavored sugar and sweetening your coffee with extra caffeine?
So what he's
No,
saying, he's trying to
the
induce
sugar-
kidney failure.
The sugar itself is not just sugar; it's sugar and coffee. So it's an instant coffee mix. So I've been putting instant coffee into my coffee.
How
as a
many
sweetener.
how many days a week are you doing this?
Twice a day, 7 days a week.
Oh, you're gonna crash so hard.
John, I've got to ask: have you been asleep? Have you been sleeping lately at all?
In the middle of the day, yeah, randomly, it's just 2:00. I just turn off.
Huh? Huh?
Couldn't figure it out why.
John, just out of curiosity, are you able to taste numbers when you have this?
It's funny. I went to a doctor visit for something else, and they were like, "Your blood pressure is looking really good." I was like, "Oh, thanks." So I guess it's the natural amount of caffeine that my body needs.
I mean,
I mentioned that I drink normally double caffeinated coffee, so I'm triple caffeinating for each cup.
Oh,
he's getting a shot of espresso in his espresso, essentially.
Oh Lord, John, I know that we as gamers pretty much consist on caffeine and some form of carbohydrate, but I'm thinking this might not be the healthiest choice. And I mean that with as much love and respect as you deserve.
I appreciate it. It was just an interesting thing I'd noticed. I was like, oh, because I was, at the store and it was on sale next to a bunch of other stuff. Like, oh, I guess if they have figured something out about making coffee sweeter, I guess I'll try this out. But yeah, it turns out it was actually coffee into my coffee. So yeah, that's I don't know how to segue from that into news, but actual GW news. Next week's
Good news. John is awake and active right now. On to the news. That's how we segue.
Yeah, John is very awake right now.
It's funny because I've been doing it for like 3 months, but
he can taste the colors.
Do you open doors when you go to different rooms, or do you just vibrate through them?
I think he just vibrates like through walls right now.
When I was doing coding, my coffee mug when I was doing coding was a beer stein, and I learned that in the coffee like machines, if you pushed espresso, you just got the coffee. You didn't bother with all the water to dilute it. I would have 6 of those in the morning, and then 3 or 4 of them after lunch.
Have you had problems with kidney stones at this point?
Yeah, John.
No, I had
someone
one when I was
who
8, but then ever since then.
speaking of someone who literally peed a rock last week, I'm concerned, sir.
I am too.
I'm not. Skip this whole entire brewing thing. Just start eating beans, man. Just eat the beans.
Yeah, fresh
did
off
that once.
the. Oh my lord!
I made my own chocolate covered espresso beans. They're pretty good.
Did you flavor the coffee with that? Did you flavor the chocolate with those coffee crystals?
No.
Did you
just
coffee
used
your
that.
coffee with coffee?
That was gentler.
Lord. If anyone hears of a strange kind of new detonation in Texas, that's John exploding.
Destroying a toilet.
So, I
Yeah,
guess
you gotta
you could
poop
say
like a
the
champ.
abomination that is. Do what?
You gotta poop like a champ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's kept regular not by fiber, but by all the excess caffeine. Speaking as a caffeine addict, I'm impressed.
So,
I don't think I can do that.
to stay awake, if you're going to be staying awake as much, you might want to be able to paint your Necromunda models. They're coming out next week. So the Second Son, which is that weird Magos looking guy that we had previewed a few months ago, is finally getting released next week.
This little pet gene stealer thingy.
Yeah, which wouldn't be too hard to cut away and put in some weird dark mech thingy.
Yeah. That model definitely has potential for customization for like a Magos or something like that for AdMech or Dark Mech. So
yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see how many parts he comes in, because I really like the weird little vial tube thing on his back and some of the other stuff he's got. And then there's also some other Malstrain gene stealer parts. There's a Coalescence, which is a flesh pillar of goo. And then a Malstrain Alpha, which is just if you took a Broodlord arms and glued them onto a normal size gene stealer. And that's really it for everything that we can steal for Heresy coming out next week. GW is hopefully gearing up for Heresy Thursdays, which they alluded to in a couple articles last week that was going to be coming back soon.
Okay, so in the roadmap, they said Heresy Thursdays are returning this month, right?
Yes.
you basically have this
There's
week.
one Thursday left.
Yep.
So
Now they could pull their old "we meant British Septembers" or whatever they said for seasons last time. So there's no telling when we're actually going to get it.
wait, hold on. British September.
Because that was a joke. So when they were doing the roadmaps, we were all, because they said this is coming in summer, this is coming in fall. We were like, well, where are the close combat weapons and some of the other stuff that was like delayed? And their response was, we meant British seasons. So then the entire internet responded with, I thought the only British season was rain. And depressing.
Well, I mean, it fits. Okay. So anyway, carrying on.
Honestly, sadly, that's really it. Nothing from Joy Toy, nothing from merch.
Tommy, no new plushies, no McFarlane.
The best thing we got, I guess, is there was a couple of Joy Toy Space Wolves that got revealed. So the Legion Praetor and Havarl Red Blade.
Mm-hmm.
Havarl definitely was hitting the gym. He lost a few pounds
using his protein powder shakes in the morning.
Yeah, and he cut back on his banana fur.
Yeah, I think we're all happy about the banana fur being gone.
Yeah, these are definitely neat models. I'm hoping that we're going to get a Gulliman soon, since we got all those Ultramarines over the past few months.
There was one other thing. The paints, the Kickstarter,
the P3 Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the P3 Kickstarter came through. It's really oddly broken up. So it started right after we finished recording last week. I was gonna back it, and then I realized that all the paints I wanted were like onesie twosie inside of each different little tier. And so to get the 5 colors that I need to finish or to add onto my Cobras, I was gonna spend something like $250.
Yeah.
So it's up for those who want it. I will say that in the past, I backed a couple of Steam Forged games, and they were definitely slow to respond as far as like keeping to their word and on delivery times and things like that. So I would be careful about that. I'll also say that if you're backing a Kickstarter and it's some piece of technology that the company hasn't done before, I always add a big grain of salt to that. So if the company, specifically, I've had this problem with like electronic equipment, like 3D printers, and Christina backed a bunch of camera equipment and things like that never got fulfilled. So if they're doing manufacturing that they're not used to, I always take that with a big grain of salt for the company. This is going to be their first paint line, as well as they're releasing 2 different lines of paint at the same time. They're coming out in both dropper and flip top bottles. So, I mean, obviously they're a company that has delivered on a lot of other products before, so they probably have some type of manufacturing knowledge, but it's just something to keep in the back of your mind if you're going to go ahead and back this. I'm not one of those people that says boohoo to all Kickstarters, but I definitely think that this one's a little odd considering they know that it's a proven track record of fail with P3 in general, as well as the fact that they're not bothering to use Kickstarter for any of the other things they picked up from Privateer Press is a little odd. And then the other weird thing in that is the P3 or the Kickstarter exclusive colors. So there's a group of like 8 paints that are only through the Kickstarter. They'll never be remade again because they said there's not that much of a demand for them.
That's kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't ever understand limited edition paints. So definitely against that, because I'd hate for you to find out that that's something that's, you know, the pivotal piece of your painting formula, and then sorry, you've used up the only bottle you ever bought.
Yeah, that's one thing I've never really enjoyed is when someone makes something and it's only be a limited, never again release thing, and you like it, you use it, and then it's gone, and you just feel screwed.
Yep.
I know that a lot of people felt that way when GW themselves did a lot of the transitions and got rid of some of the stuff like the old foundation paints they used to use.
Yep.
Yeah, I know I was one of those because I was using one of their yellows. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Tau Sept Ochre. I can't recall. But I was using that for my yellow for my striping on my Iron Warriors, and I got really upset when that was no longer around. And then
Yeah.
one Adepticon, I found a guy who had 3 unopened bottles for like $10 each, and I bought all of them. So yeah, then I haven't painted another Iron Warrior since then. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, I've been trying to find replacements for some of the foundations forever.
Yep. Yeah, I would not mind if someone eventually figured out who made those lines for GW, because I know
Probably
that
Coat the what is it? Coat the
no,
Arm?
Coat Arms did the ones that were in the hex bottles. These were the ones that came
After.
two basically steps after that one, because they got rid of the Coat d'Arms ones and they moved to the original ones that they had doing Chaos Black.
Yep.
And then they moved to the next one, and the next one had the foundation paint line. And since then, they've moved twice again,
Yeah.
and they've done the speed paint ones as well. So, yeah, I think that unfortunately the foundation ones may be lost in the ether somewhere out there.
Well, I mean, it's like they changed the I don't know what you call them, the washes. They went from the small bottles to the double size bottles, and then with the double size bottles you had gloss and non-gloss, okay, and then like the current ones they have are like it's like a bottle and a half size, but like say with nun oil, instead of being having a gloss and a non-gloss, there's like a semi-gloss, and that's the only version of it.
Oh yeah, and that's not even going into like the
The formulas themselves change too, so that
Right.
Yeah.
their normal oil is not even the same as the not gloss or
yeah,
even if you mixed it semi-gloss.
and then there's the airbrush paints that the Forge World ones that aren't available anymore, and then the regular airbrush paints that they did as a set that aren't available anymore.
No, you can still get the airbrush paints. They put them back in the stores.
They're not the same. I guarantee you
they're
that.
not. Okay.
I've tried some, and they're not. The new ones, I will say this, they flow well, but they're not the same thing,
Okay.
which kind of sad because the other ones had a really, really good metallic silver in it and had a really good green in it.
Well, send me the names. I may have them.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
No, I mean, I usually when I buy paints,
You buy a lot of them.
Right, I buy a sleeve, which is 6 pots.
Yeah, these were only released in an actual box set.
Okay, well,
But
still,
yeah, I'll send them to you. Let you know.
I may
You can
have
see
them.
if you have them.
Yeah. I have Gilman Blue. Still have a couple pots of that. So yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Jack just woke up. He's like, Golden Blue? What?
What? Rock? What?
So
Yeah.
another, like, this isn't bashing on paint, but another frustrating thing is the difficulties of getting the weird paints that you find yourself using. Because you start off using the paint and you can get it everywhere because of the GW paint, and then they quit making it. But then the painting guru, holy man, master. I don't know. Huh? No, I was gonna say Duncan Rhodes, because he is a painting phenomenon, not because of his skill set. He's a good painter, but his popularity in breaking it down for people to do. He has his line of paints that has a great replacement for Gilman Blue, but getting it in the U.S. because of different agreements is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I have never seen the second wave of that stuff ever.
I've got 2 local stores that stock them, so if y'all are looking for some, let me know.
Well, I mean, like I've seen the first wave of the too thin coats, okay, but that color that Jack's talking about, I think, is in the second wave of
It is the second wave that is not in the U.S. yet.
Yeah, and you haven't been. It was announced like last spring because I think we've talked about it before.
Yeah, no, we've talked about it a couple times.
Seen them. I've never seen them for sale in the U.S. yet.
One of the stores started getting a bunch of the washes and stuff that I think was part of the 1.5 wave.
Okay.
So let me know and I'll check for y'all.
Okay.
Oh yeah, and speaking of paints, our sponsor Monument should be releasing their rattle cans.
Yes, the spray cheese that you can get. I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, I need to get some. I want to try out the whites and the black.
Spray cleat cheese.
Yes,
they keep telling you that you can't eat their paint, but that's just Big Paint telling you you can't do something.
They're not eat the paint, but they're like easy cheese, and yeah, we're calling it easy cheese.
Yeah, it's just spray cheese. That's all it is.
They're not my dad.
So you can eat that. So you can eat that paint if you want.
Not my dad.
What was that Ted Lasso quote? You do what you want.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Live.
But yeah, their rattle can stuff should just be coming out like right here at the end of the month. Like, okay, so whenever you're listening to us, it should be like the end of September, if I remember correctly, of 24. So.
There's some cool stuff. If it works as good as the Vallejo primer, I would love to stop having to track that stuff down all over the U.S.
So from what I was told, okay, it's about the same price as the GW rattle cans, which I mean, I don't know if y'all have looked at them. They're pretty expensive.
Yeah,
I think it's within a couple dollars a can of the GW cans, but the difference is that they're like, don't quote me on this, they're significantly larger than the GW cans. So they're like 30 to 40%, or like legitimately 30% 30 to 40% larger than a GW rattle can. So for the amount of money you're paying, you're getting a lot more paint. So
yeah, the Vallejo ones are, if I can find them sometimes, I can get them for about 20% cheaper than GW cans, but they hold about 20% less paint. So it's kind of a wash.
yeah. So, and I think there was like also maybe like there was varnishes too. I think they were getting ready to put out, if I'm not mistaken, that was like, this is a monument, is like, thought there was a gloss and a non-gloss or like a semi-gloss or something like that.
Yeah. So that'll be cool when those come out.
Hey,
We'll definitely have to do a review for the cat.
Speaking of coming out, I've done a thing.
No. What have you done now, Jack?
John, your video's already edited and live.
Awesome. Well, I think that's actually a really good segue, Jack, to come into the Mechanicum book that just came out.
Is that because some of them are on wheels and they kind of roll back and forth? Get it? Segue.
Yeah, and some of them have tentacles, and some of them have crushing claws, and some of them have really weird warlord traits that don't make any sense.
So can I go ahead and say something up front?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay, so I try to patronize my my GW store to get 30K stuff because I want them to keep carrying stuff in store, you know. And I don't buy a lot, but I try to. But you would think that with a new release, that they would, especially a rule book for a new faction that they just put out, that they would have the rule books in store for sale. No, that would be too difficult for GW. And I'm not blaming my store at all. It's just a general GW store thing. Now, friendly local game shops could get it, and I'm sure some of them ordered it, but what I'm just saying is, like, if you're going to put an army box out for an all-new army for one of your lines, you probably should have the rule books available for them.
The Citadel, which usually gets everything, like even the direct order exclusives, from what I saw in the images they put up, they got like 6. It was not a lot of books for such a large scale opportunity.
Right.
That being said, I'm going to say that this book is probably the weakest of all of the campaign books they've put out, simply because it doesn't have rules for everybody. So the last few campaign books, you can say, okay, I play Space Marines. There's at least a reason for me to buy this because I've got rules for inductee, or I've got rules for the tank crew, or rules for the battle books that have been updated and pushed into this campaign book. This one, there's really nothing for non-bad Mechanicum players or people that like the campaign system to buy. I mean, unless you're going to play the couple Black Shield characters, there's nothing in here that's like, there's literally nothing in here that's for everyone. This is a very, very specific book. This almost reminds me of the old Black books, but smaller and not as good.
Okay, so I'm not gonna disagree for the most part, but I will disagree in a little part. Ignoring the character rules and the character and the units and all that, I'm kind of a fan of the actual missions in this book. Because
that's fine. But I'm saying there's nothing Sons of Horus in this book.
No, there's nothing Sons of Horus in this book.
Right.
Which
or
is
Iron Warriors or World Eaters or any of the factions you play, which is, I think, is more of the crime, honestly. It wouldn't have been that hard to throw out a couple of
random Praetors or Warlords or something like that.
Or some more Mechanicum rules, because technically there's no new rules for units in this book. There's the new Warlord traits and there's the new Aetheric Dominions, which some of them are really good, don't get me wrong. And we'll go through those in a little bit, but overall, this is kind of a lacking book. I think this was more of a campaign delivery system, kind of what we've heard through the grapevine. or through the traps, as Isaiah Horus puts it, is this was really a lot of the work that they did on Black Book 10 that they could salvage over. So the missions and things like that were supposed to be released in 1.0, and then were kind of pushed to the back burner until they could finally find a way to release them, which, because of the way these are written, I almost believe, because some of those missions are hot.
Okay. I think that you're absolutely right that a lot of this was cribbed from previous edition stuff and then ported over. I think they almost copy, cut, and pasted the new units, like the Khitan and the Scorpion and the Bloodslaughter. I think those are literally just copy and pasted
Yep.
over from where
Same with the Questoris Household Dark Blessings are exactly the same.
Yeah. I do think some of the fluff is older and older written, because when I went through that yesterday evening, it kind of had a bit of the older feel to it, if that makes any sense. And I'm not saying in that it's the way it's written. I'm talking about kind of like the word choice. It felt more immersive, like the older books did, as opposed to how the newer books have, if that makes any sense.
The new books kind of feel like Jane's, if we're going to go military history. They're really good for getting people into the thing and giving you a 10,000-foot overview, whereas the other books were more like watching Band of Brothers. Like you were going to concentrate on this front, and you are going to look at these units. You're going to know these men. You're going to understand what they did, and you're going to like it. And that's what we liked. So we all bought those black books. Whereas a lot of the older fluff or a lot of the newer fluff has been like, okay, this is an understanding of how many people were there, and this is where they went, and they did these things. And the problem is, a lot of us came into Heresy because of the grittiness, and we've kind of said this before, that a lot of the fluff up until this point has been lacking in places. But Duncan, like you, I think that this book has a lot of good fluff in it. Again, I'm not knocking the fluff. I'm not knocking the relic missions or even the other missions. But I just don't see this as a good all over book like some of the last campaign books have been.
Yeah, that really fits. And I'm going to say this as well. The missions don't. Okay, so back in first edition of Heresy, as we all know, missions were designed to make you feel brought into the narrative. They were designed more in depth. They kind of gave you reasons for things to be going on, and it felt like you were actually part of the actual narrative when you were playing in them.
It's more cinematic.
Yes, it absolutely felt that. Whereas in this edition, that hasn't really been kind of a thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. They're not as in depth. They're definitely not as in depth.
This one gives a bit more in-depth feel. The missions don't just feel like they're copy, cut, and pasted. They feel more tuned, more developed, if that makes sense. Even the new mission map on Giant Killers feels different, if that makes sense. Because instead of the standard Japanese flag, it's a variation on the Japanese flag. And we hadn't had that before. So this is not just a copy and paste. This is something that's actually different. And again, the mission itself feels a bit more. It feels better, if that makes sense. Everything about it feels more involved. All of the missions do. The way that they have everything laid out sounds good, seems fluffy. The way they have the relic missions that they've kind of not really brought back feel involved. Yeah, you still have roles and things like that, but it just feels more like they actually paid a bit more deep attention to it. and want people to actually go, ooh, this is neat. I'd like to incorporate this into my gaming group and have fun with this mission. Because I'm sitting here looking at some of the stuff and I like it. If I were designing missions for an event, I would definitely give this book and these missions in here and the rules in it a bit of a go through and a read, because they're kind of nice. Yeah. Anyway, that's just me saying that I'm impressed by the missions. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I know I wasn't.
Oh, you're good, dude. So the problem is, like, because this book isn't really geared towards everybody, it's almost like being the kind of Mechanicum player, I have to talk a lot about this one, so I don't mind.
No,
after the missions and after the fluff, it's like, okay. And so yeah, the Questoris household is a copy paste from the exemplary battles that we got with the corrupted night houses. Automata Malefica, you get some new warlord traits, which honestly, some of them are pretty good, some are a little weird. The scion of Cyclothrace, or Cyclorathy, I don't know. When rolling to determine the effects for the weapon, if you get hit by haywire, you basically roll on this table. Considering haywire affects armatures and vehicles and things like that, it doesn't really affect automata as much. This one's a little weird. Basically, every time you get hit by haywire, you roll a d6 on a 1 to 3, nothing happens. I'm sorry, this is a new haywire table. On a 1 to 3, nothing happens. On a 4 to 5, the vehicle suffers a glancing hit, whilst other models still suffer 1 wound. Only invulnerable saves or damage mitigation rules may be taken against this. And on a 6, they suffer a penetrating hit, and dreadnoughts and automata suffer 1 wound. So it basically just makes haywire slightly worse. I don't necessarily know that you need to waste your whole warlord trait on that, because the only other people that are going to be spamming haywire are going to be the Myrmidon cult. And really, those, I don't necessarily know that you're going to see a ton of those. Like, I just don't see wasting a whole warlord trait for a haywire change. Scion of Xana is another warlord trait. You gain the following advanced reaction. This advance called Xanite Artifice. Once per battle during the opposing player's shooting phase, when an enemy unit makes a shooting attack targeting a unit that includes any models with the corrupted engine unit subtype controlled by the reactor player, improve the Malefic Aegis in brackets by 1 up to a maximum of 4 up. So this is basically a demon save. And so this takes effect before any model armor saves are rolled. So basically, you can say I get a better invulnerable save in reaction to being shot at. I'm whelmed, I'll be honest with you, that because you're going to have to build an entire army around having Malefica Aegis in the army, and there's not a lot of units that have Malefica Aegis. It's just the ones in this book. So unless you're combining that with some of the other ones in here, because they're not like troops, they're all like fast attack or Lords of War.
So the reason that I think that Scion of Cyclothrace is actually a really good warlord trait, and I could be wrong here, so please tell me if I am, is because I think it's not that you're doing that to the enemy, it's that all your units that would be affected by haywire are affected less often. Because haywire right now is on a 1, nothing happens, 2 through 5, you get the glancing hit, and 6, a penetrating hit. This basically says that all your automata, dreads, knights, vehicles, etc., get a 50% chance of nothing now.
Correct. But let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Out of all of your armies, how many haywire guns do you run?
Yeah. I'm not disagreeing with you there.
The only army that I've seen that runs haywire shenanigans is the Mechanica Myrmidon cult, because they can take Myrmidons that have 2 haywire guns each, and they can take them in units of up to 10. And I played one of those armies at one of the events last year, and it was honestly one of my least favorite games, not just because of that, but because of the person that was running it. And they would basically just look at whatever unit they wanted in my list to go away, and it did. So, unit of Armigers, poof. An entire knight, poof. I'm sure if I had a profile run, poof. So,
Were they using Haywire?
Yeah. But
So this would have
that's
given you a lot more chance against that if you had that on there.
right, except for the fact that you can only take it in the mech list. You can't take this in a knight household.
Yeah,
That's the other
you're
thing
right
that
about
comes in
that.
the problem with these Scions of the Dark Forces or Forges is that these are for
Trader mech only.
Tegmata forces only, yeah. Trader Tegmata forces only. It's not just all Mechanicum, and it's not just Trader Mechanicum, it is specifically Trader Tegmata, which is the first section of the mech book, which is the usual mech list that you're going to run, right? It's the Thalax and Castellax, but again, that you're going to be the one with the haywire is my point. Why are you the person that's going to be shooting the guns worried about receiving the guns?
Yeah, I see your point.
And the Scion of Xana, that one, you have a 1 per game able to add to your Malefic Aegis, which is basically an invul save.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's only for the Malefica model, because Malefic Aegis isn't what's on Castellax or anyone else that has an invul save. It's only these special units that are in this book. Now, there are ways to make some of them more troops. The downside is the only one that I can see that makes more of them troops is another warlord trait called Scion of Tharum.
Yeah.
Which allows you to take blood slaughterers as troops and or fast attack choices. And only the compulsory blood slaughterers, compulsory troop blood slaughterers gain line. And this is a problem I've run into with a lot of so-and-so unit gains line. This is a big problem I ran into with the Ufsal Sentinels list. I don't think the world ends
down on there.
Yeah, I don't think the world ends if all of your blood slaughterers had line. I don't think the world ends if all of the Sentinels had line. They're really cracking down on who gets line, and it's like, why? Nothing. Blood slaughterers are okay. I'm not going to say they're bad, but I'm not going to say they're great. They're pretty good for what they are. We went through them before, but movement 9, weapon skill 5, strength and toughness 6, 5 wounds, initiative 3, 4 attacks. You can give up one of those attacks to use your crappy ballistic skill to hopefully reroll your charge.
Yeah.
For 110 points. And a 6-up invul save and a 3-up normal save. And they're basically crappy dreadnoughts. So, I mean, if you wanted to run... I was trying to think of a funny way to say Fury of the Ancient, but Milding of the Ancients. You could run it fastly with blood slaughterers.
You could.
So the last warlord trait is Scion of Relaxi.
Relaxi.
With a model with the corrupted engine unit subtype that is part of the same detachment as the warlord, loses its last wound or hull point and is not immediately removed. Instead, resolve strength 5 plus D3 AP 5 hits against every model, friend or foe, within 3 plus D3 inches of the model or vehicle hull. Any unit that suffers 1 or more wounds due to this warlord trait must also take an immediate pinning test. You can only take a single pinning test from the effects of this warlord trait if another ruler effectively causes a similar set of attacks to model controllers. So instead of dying, you basically can regain wounds by causing other people to be pinned. Hopefully. The problem I have with this, instead of such a short range, 3 plus D3 inches is not a lot. Even for a corrupted engine. Those are big, I'm not going to lie. Again, that's basically everything that's down here is corrupted engines. So you could just what is that called when the Mechanicum can pick out a single robot and make it really cool?
Honestly, I don't know because I don't play Mechanicum, as previously hinted at.
Yeah. Paragon of Metal. That's it. So this is like the reverse of Paragon of Metal. Instead of being cool while it's alive, this is cool when it dies. And Paragon of Metal is usually used as a suicide bomb. I could see this guy being used as the same thing. So the first time when you think you're going to lose him, just drive him pale-mail into the enemy lines. Hopefully you're going to kill some stuff with your strength 6 to 8 AP 5 hits. I again don't see this one being game-winningly good. I see it being kind of cool. Like, haha, you've fallen into my trap. I can cause myself to not die, hopefully, and gain some wounds back by causing your units to be pinned. I'm not trying to shit on this book entirely, but at the same time, I'm like, those warlord traits aren't
Need
as
help?
good as, yeah. Definitely need help.
When we get done with this, I'm gonna have a thought, and I don't think it'll be a controversial thought, but I have a serious thought I think needs to be addressed. That I think would be something that the entire community would be getting behind. That would make people more encouraged to get behind all these various books as GW puts them out. But I'll bring that up at the end.
There are 2 new etheric dominions. So these are kind of like psychic powers that you can trigger from your Magoses. There's Heedless Slaughter, so you can trigger this on a unit composed entirely of models. It basically makes them charge if they're more than 8 inches away. They can charge a different unit to one that they made a shooting attack against in the previous shooting phase, which is good. Additionally, if the unit is composed entirely of models with the special rule, they add +1 to their charge rolls and +1 to determine if they win combat during the assault phase. And +1 to their sweeping advance value if they win that combat. So I think that's cool, but the Mechanicum really don't have any close combat units apart from the ones that are in this book. I think that the Arl attacks, which is a model that technically doesn't exist but still has rules, is probably their biggest close combat quote unquote unit, but it is still weapon skill 4. So it runs into the same problem that all weapon skill 4 units run into, and the fact that it's not going to hit very much. Instead of getting +1 to all those stats, I'd almost rather you could like extra weapon skill boost and hurt yourself or something like that, or goes into a crazy rage and hurts himself but gets something else.
Close unit or whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold on. I'm going to ask a serious, legitimate question here.
Sure.
Other than when you run into people like myself who play like myself, who focus on melee combat above all else in the game, how often do you really see strength or weapon skill 5 on the battlefield across the table from you?
Usually, at least every army will have 1 or 2 units of it.
It's usually those elite 2 wound.
Yeah, so like the bodyguard unit. Almost always, if someone has a bodyguard unit,
Bodyguard or
weapon
Death
skill
Star
5.
unit, yeah.
Yeah, if someone has a bodyguard or someone has a Death Star, they'll have weapon skill 5. But for the most part, I don't see a lot of other people bringing a lot of weapon skill 5 to the game.
I know, but you have to realize I just said that their only close combat unit is weapon skill 4. The rest of the army is weapon skill 3.
No,
really
I
hurts
agree with
Mechanicum.
you. I agree with you. And I understand, I think, a bit of why. Because they're wanting the elites of, like, say, for example, the elites of the Marines to still be elite compared to robots.
Sure.
Just like they are versus other Marines. And regular robots aren't as good in hand-to-hand combat as Marines, because it's not cinematic enough. And I get that. So I don't know. I just think that maybe it may be myself only. It may be others who are in the podcast with me do it because I focus personally so much on hand-to-hand combat that I stress it above all else. And I don't know if that's coloring our or my sight towards the games or not, if that makes sense. So that's why I'm thinking maybe the weapon skill 4 isn't too bad.
I
But
kind of understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I know what I've experienced running these weapon skill 3 armies against weapon
yeah,
skill 4 armies, where, you know, 2 armigers charge into a squad of 10 Space Marines and get whooped and run down in return. Basic
yeah,
Space Marines because I'm weapon skill 3 or weapon skill 4. And the same thing with Knights, where my buddy's Leviathan charged my Lancer, and because the Lancer's weapon skill 4, I can pay a lot of points for upgrade to weapon skill 5, but considering, he's supposed to be top tier noblemen that have been training for this thing for blah, blah, blah years and every other piece of fluff, that Lancer just basically danced around the Knight and then broke its kneecaps and punted it off the table. And then Lancer was 100 points more expensive. I know that
yeah.
I keep joking that the Lancer is the worst unit in the game, but it all the Knights have that problem of having low weapon skill in a game where most things are weapon skill 4. That seems to be the baseline for Marines. Seems to be the
The top
semi-elite
line for everything else.
Yep.
Well, I can't say I disagree, but it does also make sense as this was primarily a Legion war. And love it or hate it, GW and Forge World before them has focused a lot on the Marine aspect of the game for Heresy. I mean, the books focus on them in the novels, um, unless it's specific where they're focusing on something or someone else, like Mechanicum and various others. But yeah, I mean, I get that point. I really do. And I think a lot of this could be alleviated by returning back to the old weapon skill chart.
Yep. Yeah. I'm of the same mentality. So there's one more etheric dimension before I go on to. I'm going to skip all the basic demon engines because again they didn't really change. There was one other change in the Krios tank, which is something we haven't gotten plastic yet. But so the last etheric dominion is etheric dominion Malevolent Artifice. Models with this special rule may re-roll all failed armor saves taken against any wounds resolved at a strength value lower than their unmodified toughness characteristic. The special rule has no effect on cover or invulnerable saves. This one could be handy in a pinch where if you know your bots are going to get boltered, cast that out there and then, okay, I'm a little safer for a round. I think that's probably one of the better ones. But going on to the Krios. And then we'll tackle the characters if we want to hit those tonight. So the
I think
Krios
touching on them would be good so we can get all this through, if that makes sense.
Sure. So the Krios is a Mechanicum tank. It's a heavy support tank. You've probably seen it before. It looks like the Triaros, except in the middle, instead of having a choo-choo train, it has a little slug guy curled around a cannon. There's before you've been able to have a lightning cannon or a plasma pulsar fusel. And what they've done is they've added a new weapon called the Irradiation Blaster. And the Irradiation Blaster is a 40-point upgrade on top of this 125-point tank. And it can shoot in 2 different methods. The first is focused. It's a 16-inch range, strength 7, AP 3, heavy 1, Fleshbane Rad Phage radiation beam. Radiation beam is it's like the old kind of beam rules. You put a line on the table from the end of the gun. All model friendly and foe or strength or hit with the strength of the weapon, strength 7 AP3. If it hits a terrain piece building model with the vehicle unit type or any model with 6 or more starting wounds, the beam is blocked and the line will go no further. And that unit suffers D3 hits instead of just 1, like every other unit has. If vehicles suffer a penetrating hit and they have the transport subtype, the units inside take D6 strength 2 AP dash fleshbane hits. That's kind of cute. It sucks that it stops at the Rhino, but it's kind of neat that it just
nukes everybody on the inside.
yeah. That's the focused version. The dispersed version is almost a little better. Its range is Hellstorm.
So that's what, about
that's
30?
the Super Flamer template.
Yep.
Strength 2 kind of sucks. AP 5, Heavy 1, Fleshbane, and Radphage. So Fleshbane means that you're always going to be wounding on, wounding on 2s, or does it reroll the wound? I forget. But either way, it's a crowd control that the Mechanicum has been lacking. So you're definitely paying a lot of points for it. Before, most people were usually taking the plasma fusel, the bus tanks, because the thing, the Krioses are movement 16. So you were using them to kind of juke around and get around people's sides and then bust into them. Ballistic skill 4 front. There's 13, 12, 10 with 4 hull points. And you can buy them flare shield before, but you can't now. You can also buy them Volkite calivers now, as well as hunter killer missiles. And it will not die on a 6-up. So definitely an interesting change to have those super flamer tanks. What you could do that's really silly is you can switch. You don't have to have all the same type of tank in the unit. So you could have 2 of the anti-tank units and 1 of the new irradiator versions. And say your 2 anti-tank guys shoot at the tank, and your giant 30-inch flamethrower template just happens to nick the target you were shooting with the anti-tank guns. That way you can get some nice zone clearing without having to worry about people just targeting your anti-infantry unit. Some cool things to think about with that tank. Any questions on the Krioses or the Warlord traits and Tekmana or Malefica or whatever?
Not a 1.
No.
Yeah, we'll try to get someone on that's a little better Mechanicum player next time that we can maybe bounce some ideas off of. I just wanted to make sure that we covered this book as soon as we could, as soon as it came out.
No, I agree. Obviously, we want to cover the book.
Yeah. We've got 3 characters: Aster Crone, Katie's Nex, and Camba Diaz, and there's 3 co-hosts. So, gentlemen, why don't you take the characters?
I'll take Aster Crone, and I'll go ahead and start it off. So I'm not going to read his stats. They're fairly bog standard Centurion stats, except he has wounds 3, attacks 3, and then leadership 9. He's got Artificer armor, Iron Halo, and he's pointed like he would be a Praetor, but his weapon skill isn't Praetor level weapon skill, which kind of fits because he's got his Warlord trait is the 94th Reforged, or the Reforged 94th, which is, while a Warlord with this trait is in 6 inches of 1 or more models with the inductee unit subtype and Legion's Blood Angel, all models in the unit with those models are part of, gain the following additional rules. They can make sweeping advances, and they can, if they make a successful charge, they gain +1 attack for the entire assault phase, even if it's a disordered charge. His weapons are 2 hand flamers, a siphon, shard axe, and no jump pack. He's also got the rule of the Ghost of Safe, The first time he loses his last wound or is otherwise removed as casualty, roll d6. On a 4-up, he's placed in reserves with 1 wound remaining. If he enters reserves on or after game 4, he gets placed automatically into play at the start of the controlling player's turn. So he walks back on. Then he's got the Captain of the Inducti rule, which means that he can join units of Inducti, whereas most characters can't. And his Shard Axe is a +1 strength, AP 3, add initiative, melee, rending 5-up, duelist 1 axe. Cool. It's a neat character who you can use if you want to focus on Inducti. Fluff wise, he's okay. I hope he gets a model, because I'd like to be able to take that little reforged face mask of his off of him and use it for something or someone else. And maybe having a neat axe for Blood Angels would be cool, so I could take that and use that for something else. But occasionally playing Blood Angels, I would not use him as a character because I'm not really a fan of the Blood Angels Inducti. And he is strictly a loyalist, so he cannot be a traitor.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a Immortal and Joe face mask going on in the future.
Yeah, he really kind of does. And if that translates well into a model, I would like that. That'd be nice.
I've seen a couple conversions of it that are really cool out there.
Yeah, I saw some last edition that were neat, and I'm kind of looking forward to seeing if GW does another one for him this time. So we'll see. But that's him. Who wants to take the next character? Cool. Well, I'll go ahead and take the next character too then. Cadus next. He's a Moritat. He's Raven Guard. He's also Raven Guard who can be used in Black Shields. Case in point, Aster Crone cannot. He's movement 8. He's got 2 Fulcrum hand cannons. He only has power armor and a refractor field. He's got a pile of special rules for him.
Yes, he does.
He's got movement 8, weapon skill 5, strength, toughness 4, 3 wounds, 5 initiative, 3 attacks, leadership 9. Ill Omened, he cannot be taken as compulsory HQ. That's one of the first ones. He can never be an army's warlord and cannot join other units. So you can't throw him into an attachment of destroyers. His other rules are as follows. Blood Crow. Whenever he makes an attack as part of a shooting attack, the range of any weapons is not restricted or affected by Night Fight, Shroud Bombs, or any other special rule. In addition, he never suffers any penalty to his ballistic skill from night fighting or any other special rules, and always makes to hit rolls using his full ballistic skill, including snapshots, and no models may make shrouded rolls to negate wounds inflicted by his attacks. That last part's kind of nasty. Given he's got a ballistic skill of 5, he's always going to be hitting you on 2s. He's also only got a range of 12 on his gun, so that's not really too bad. So he's not going to be sniping across the table. He's got the rule Relentless Stalker. When you put him on the battlefield at the start of the game, you can place him in any position on the battlefield as long as he's within area terrain, or at least 9 inches from an enemy model if he is not within area terrain, regardless of line of sight of enemy models. Okay, let me say that again. You can put him in any position on the battlefield as long as it is within area terrain, or at least 9 inches from an enemy model if he is not within area terrain, regardless of line of sight. If he's deployed from reserve at the start of the first turn, he can enter play from any point of the battlefield edge chosen by you. So what that means is, if you put him into area terrain, it doesn't matter if your opponent's got a warlord in that same area terrain. You can put him there. It doesn't matter. And it only matters, the distance is if you, from enemy models, is if you are not putting him in area terrain. Other than that, you can put him in the same area terrain occupied by your opponent. He's got, to go along with that, Rampage 3, Shrouded 4+, Move Through Cover, Loyalist, and his guns. Fulcrum hand cannons are auto weapons, so they're not bolt pistols or anything like that. For special rules, it affects such weapon effects, and the weapons possess multiple profiles. When making a shooting attack, you can choose to either make pinpoint strikes or empty the chambers, and makes all shooting attacks with both weapons using the same profile. In the fight sub phase, the point blank profile must be used instead. So he does not have a hand weapon. He's got 2 pistols, and he's beating people with his pistols. He's pistol whipping.
Pistols.
So pinpoint strike, range 12, strength 6, AP 2, pistol 1, brutal 2, concussive 1, pinning, and sniper. Then empty the chambers is range 12, ballistic or strength 6, AP 4, pistol 6, concussive 1, pinning. So since you're firing both guns, on pinpoint strike you would have 2 shots, and on empty the chambers you would have 12 shots. And then in hand-to-hand combat, point blank, you have melee. You have strength 6, AP 4, melee, brutal 2, precision strikes, and 4+, and rending 5+. I mean, I'm sure every one of us has seen, oh god, that horrible movie with the Grammaton
Equilibrium.
player. Yes, he is literally doing gun kata fu and all that. That's what he does. Yeah, he's neat.
Is he 100? Was it 160?
165.
165 point neat?
I don't know. If you play Moritats and you play Raven Guard or you play Black Shield Loyalists, he might be something to contemplate because for a Centurion, he's kind of beefy.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got Shrouded 4 up, Move Through Cover, his own rules. He has Shroud Bombs, and he's got the Falcon special rule.
A refractor field.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly not bad. Would I take him over a regular Moritat? Honestly, I think I would, because he's got a lot that goes for him. I mean, those pistols are nice. You're already going to get a chance to sit there and just deploy yourself into terrain right beside a warlord. I mean, you could literally have him pop up out of nowhere and be like, surprise! Pop, 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 with the pinpoint strikes.
You've got all of the downsides of an already Moritat, but none of the. I mean, might as well.
He's maybe like you could say maybe like the John Wick.
Yeah.
Baba Yaga.
His infiltration marker is a dog.
Yeah.
Looking away. Like, no.
And unlike his the regular Mortat, who's got the chain fire problem, he doesn't have that. He can keep doing it.
He does. Because they're not,
So round 1, you deploy him where you're going first. Your opponent's warlord's in some terrain with whatever. You deploy him in there with his 2 sniper pistols that are strength 6, AP 2, and brutal 2. You've got 2 brutal 2 shots. So they have the possibility of facing 4 AP 2 wounds with sniper that are gonna possibly gank out that warlord. And then after you've done that, you charge in, and you've got precision strikes 4 up. You've got rampage 3. You've already got 3 attacks base. You got the extra hand weapon because you have 2 of these hand cannons. So you're looking at 4, 5 on the charge, rampage 3. I mean, with those, you've got precision strikes 4 and rending 5 and brutal 2. Yeah, you're a pure character killer.
Yeah.
I'd definitely throw him in there instead of a regular Moritat. He's nasty. He is absolutely nasty. And I mean, yes, he's only 11 skill 5, so that is a bit of a drawback. But yeah, he's a murderer. He's a murder just waiting to happen. Who wants to do Camba Diaz? Jamie, you or Jack?
I have not read any of this, so Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem with me. I'm actually reading it as we're going through.
Cool.
See here.
Then
So
go ahead and do Cameron Diaz.
So Cameron Diaz, he has some numbers. He's roughly 120 points. Looks like to me he has a bolt gun. I'm not sure what that D word said. A boat pistol. There you go. I think it says a Dorito, or maybe.
Durenda. It's his power weapon. It's a screwy looking sword.
It's a screwy looking sword. Okay, so he has a power. So I just zoomed in on this thing so I can read it now. An iron halo, some grenades, some of that fancy armor that people have. He is a character who's unique. He's an Imperial Fist character. Just found that out just now. Master of Legion, independent character, relentless, defiant to the end. That sounds fancy. A loyalist, and he has his own unique warlord trait that he has. See here, it is if a warlord with this trait with 3 inches of objective marker that they control, the controller player can declare his warlord will activate the line unbroken. Fancy. Until the end of the battle, while this warlord within 3 inches of that objective marker, they have fearless encounter attack. Okay. Fearless. I'm not gonna lie. I like fearless. Here. And then he gets an additional reaction in the assault phase. See here. When he's down to 1 rune remaining, he gains Feel No Pain 4+. And then his fancy weapon is +1 strength, AP3, melee, rending 5+, two-handed. Yeah. And he's only 120 points. So basically, if I'm reading him correctly, you put him on a objective with some people, declare that objective as the line unbroken, and he should stay there until the end of the game. If I'm reading,
shall not pass.
Along with his boys, yeah.
If I'm reading all this correctly, only for 120 points. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely not a bad choice for a raider.
No.
Weapon skill pretty good too.
Kill the Zone Mortalis. How many objectives are generally in Zone Mortalis? 1, 2.
Usually, I'll go with, was it 3? Because you have 1 on either side, and there's kind of 1 in no man's land.
Yeah, normally it's about 3.
So you stick him in
the middle of the table and
say, I'm here. I'm gonna stay here. Go get fucked.
Yeah. And considering he cost 120, which is the exact cost of a start-off Praetor before you put any gear or rules on them, he's a steal.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
Imperial Fist. He is absolutely a steal.
I actually like this dude. Leadership 9. Like, the only thing that I would knock against him is that his sword is only AP3.
Yeah, but it is rending 5.
Yeah.
So that does help him somewhat. But he's not supposed to be one of the main beat stick characters in the books. He's literally a line captain. So he's like one of the second line leaders. He's not one of the main lines. So he's not like Fafnir Rand. He's not Sigismund, but he's still got a weapon skill equal to Fafnir Rand. And for
a champion as a bodyguard or something, just in case. Or a chaplain. Make the whole unit better with a chaplain.
Stuff him into a unit of what's
New
the
command squad?
Yes. No, not even them. You'd have to stick him with a unit of like warders. Sticking with them, they become fearless sitting on an objective. I mean, you're not going to shift them. Well, they've already got their rules to go with them. Now they're just fearless on top of that. And they have counterattack because of him. That's mean. And that's dirt cheap for him. Yeah, I call that a win.
Yeah.
I would say the only bad thing is you don't even have a bolter. He's just got a bolt pistol.
Yeah.
I mean, so he's going to be letting he's close combat only
Yeah,
essentially.
well, his sword's
Yeah.
two-handed, so it doesn't even matter with the boat pistol. I think that's
Yep.
his. When they copy and paste, I think the boat pistol's already on there.
Yeah,
It probably is, along with the frag grenades and crack grenades.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I will be honest. Between the three characters, I don't think any of them are game breaking, and I think all of them make a good are a good addition to the game. On that,
I think the latter two are probably better than
then Aster Crone.
Aster Crone. Yeah,
Yeah, I will agree there. They are a better choice than Aster
I'm not
Crone.
saying
But
he's
that's
bad.
not bad. He's not
I'm not
bad.
saying he's bad. I just think the other two are better choices. But like again, all three of them are Legion specific. So
Yeah, I don't
There
think
is-
they're bad at all.
There was one other stealth update that happened that we're not going to get to tonight, but we're just going to mention it. Some of the existing characters in Legacies were changed to allow Black Shield, and
Yep.
some of them technically can't be played as Black Shields because they require some of the special units that come with their original Legion to be taken as troops or compulsory troops, and that kind of breaks the way the Black Shields work. So we'll have to look at if an FAQ comes out or something like that. But we'll go ahead and we'll talk about those more in depth next time as we go more into. I want to go more into the missions next time, as well as talking about those character changes and some other stuff.
I will
Yeah.
say that from the AdMech players that I've talked to about this, most of them were fairly okay with this book. The one thing they were kind of irked a little bit about is that it's supposed to be an AdMech based book, and the new characters that are added are Space Marines. That was their main complaint.
The one person that I know that was over the moon about this book is my buddy Joel, who started Mechanicum, wasn't that impressed with the fact there were no Plastic Mechanicum yet, so he put them on the back burner to do Word Bearers. And now that Plastic Mechanicum are out and Demon Engine rules at the same time, he's the only person I know that's been like, the book was made for me. I was like, congrats.
David Sampson's was already working on a Dark AdMech army, so he's very happy with it. What else? There are little hints and tidbits in the book, especially if you look in the pictures of new units that for the AdMech and Plastic, there was a back of a new Legion Imperialis army leaked this weekend too, that showed new mini scale Plastic AdMech stuff. So
is the Decimator a new sculpt?
No, it's a really old sculpt.
No, I don't remember having all this extra stuff on it, but maybe it's just me.
Yeah, so the stock photo was only ever one with the goofy cannon and an arm, and so they painted up a new version for this book.
Okay.
So the thing I wanted to come back to before we end this, if there's one thing I wish they would change with the way they do these books, and I mean this towards all the campaign expansions like this, like Siege of Cathonia, I wish they would put in each of these books, when they're sitting there talking about the narrative of everything that went on, I wish we would receive one unit for each, and I don't mean a special character, and I don't mean one unit per legion, but one unit per each faction. Like one generic Space Marine unit, one new Space Marine unit that could be reflected as something that was originated on or pivotal in this mission or this campaign, that now all the actual legions start to adapt or use. One for the Marines, one for the Solar Rocks, one for the cults, one for Mechanicum.
But going along those lines, I almost think that if that would have happened, your Marine unit probably would have been inductee. I think they got mixed up, and they probably should have come out with this, since one of the relic missions is about capturing all the armor.
Yeah.
They would probably have made the inductee, so that way you've got all this extra armor, which I don't like the fact they changed the fluff on that armor, but that's another story. But I think that would probably have been your unit, or maybe that whip driver guy that comes with the Solar Rocks. Something like that probably would have been a good choice for this book as well. because it didn't make sense that we got like 3 Marine units the last book. We got the command squad, we got the not lieutenant guy,
The off
and
day.
then yeah,
Yeah.
and we got the.
No, I agree.
It's just
I agree.
it seems odd that we've got like one book got 3, another book got 2.5, and then nothing here. Not it's first world problems. Okay, fine, but at the same time, there's got to be reasons for people to buy this book. At the end of the day, I'm not attacking GW to attack GW. I'm attacking GW because I'm not even attacking GW. I'm more disappointed because I like giving them money, and there needs to be, apart from, honestly, if I didn't have to review the book for the podcast, I probably wouldn't have bought the book. I probably just would have looked at Joel's a little bit, because there's not a lot of reason for me to have this apart from a couple missions that I might steal for another event.
No, I get that. Like I said, I wish that they would do these and bring more information for each faction into the actual game. More inclusion of units for each faction. And I don't mean characters. I mean, like, if you're going to do this, bring in a new type of line squad for each faction.
Yeah.
Something that'd be neat. Like, hey, look, because of this, here's the Skitarii unit for the mech and the dark mech. Here's some strange new solar ox unit for line holders, like the sacrificial guard or something nonsense, whose job is literally to hold as hard as they can to relieve or something. I think doing that and then including something like that going forward would be very well received by the community. But obviously, it's GW's ball and GW's game, and they can do whatever they want. I just would hope that we would see that in books going forward, because I think, again, would bring more focus and more attention from all of the actual community as a whole.
Right. It wouldn't just be like only the AdMech people like would want it. You're trying to get everybody to want it. So
bingo. And I think that would actually be more sales forward.
Duncan, you make too much sense. That's why you don't work for them.
Yeah. Well, that I don't live in England.
That too.
Yeah.
We don't want the pay cut.
No, we don't think we want a pay cut. But hey, there we go. That's my 2 cents. Overall, fluff wise, I give the book a B, solid B plus. Rules wise, for missions, I'm going to give the book an A minus, because I think there's some actually really intuitive stuff there. For new units,
probably not.
New units and new rules, I'd call it a B. Because yes, it's putting some new stuff in there, but most of it's stuff that we've already seen before, and it's not even updated. So overall, for the entire book, I'd give it a B plus grade.
Yeah, I think I'd be a little harsher and give it a B to a B minus. I don't necessarily know that I want to go down and break down all the things individually like you did. I've kind of already done that. Like I said earlier, it's just, I don't know, are we going to have to wait another year, or are we going to get the other half of the exemplary battle update in 6 months' time, so that way we can have a book and a half a year as we're doing right now?
I don't know.
If this is our yearly book, it's kind of,
well, we've already had our 1 yearly book this year, so if we're getting one and this a year, I'm not going to object too much.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Everything's blurring together. 2024 has been kind of weird.
Yes, it has, and I understand that.
So yeah, like I said, I don't think this is a great book. I don't even think it's a bad book, but
it certainly is a book.
Yeah, I think they could have done a lot better. I was really hoping for, and we've said this before in the podcast, plastic Skitarii updates, rolling some of those units in. maybe better ways of moving some of the Mechanicum into the Marines than just that character. I was kind of surprised that they didn't put in the exemplary battle of the extra militia rules that they got to allow with the Mechanicum. Those weren't in here. That would have been just a cheap freebie to throw in here, the extra 3 pages of rules.
Oh, I'll agree there.
So it just seems odd that some of the choices that were made with this. Yeah, I'm B- to B middle.
All right, that's fair. I mean, I'm not going to disagree from your angle on that. I like that idea. Jack, Jamie, do you all have thoughts at all, or have you not had enough of an option
I
to
haven't had
review the book?
enough time to read stuff to give it a good rating, and I don't want to do that.
That's fair.
I mean, I'm going through it. I'm reading it. It's just I haven't finished it, so I just don't want to give it a rating right now.
Not so much rating on the book. I'm happy whenever we get anything in general. Especially happy on people who basically almost couldn't operate their army before this book. Like there's nothing going on with the mech before this. So the fact that people can play what they want to play, it's all right with me. Is it perfect? No. Is anything we're ever going to be perfect? No. Are we? Am I happy that people can play their armies again? Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that this added any old armies that didn't exist before. Like the blood slaughter thing is only really the new thing apart from the Creos. But
the Khitan, a newer. Well, I mean that's a newer model, but
that had the rules in the PDF before. So
right.
Yeah, I don't know. That was kind of my issue, is that this was basically just PDF thrown together and even missed one. I wouldn't have minded maybe more PDF or some of the changes. And then we also get the fact that they're still doing that whole, we're going to allow you to take line, but only some of the thing that they seem to like doing.
So I'm just going to say, going back to weren't there rumors saying that a lot of this fluff was released from the leftover book 10 from the first.
Yeah.
Just I'm gonna throw this out here, looking at the pictures, okay, and if this will date me a little bit, but if you remember originally when the I guess it was book 9 that was released with the Night Lords and Dark Angels, it was originally supposed to have most of this in it. It was supposed to have Dark Angels fighting a lot of the Dark Admech, and that's where you got the Men of Iron that the Dark Angels break out on them. So if you actually look in the pictures in the back of these books, they're fighting Dark Angels. Just throwing that out there. So, and
again, you combine that with the amount of fluff that we got in here is almost like a half of a black book, and that last black book was a little thin.
Well, I mean, they cut it on that book 9. They literally cut all the Admech stuff out. And it was that when it was originally announced, it was Dark Angels, Night Lords, Admech, Dark Admech, and then like Alpha Legion or something like that. And yeah, you can kind of definitely tell that this is where a lot of this came from.
Like I said, I will say that this book definitely has, fluff-wise, it feels like an old black book. It really does to me.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean,
that's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing.
We all love the old black books. And I really like the art in this book. The pictures with everything. It perfectly reminds me of the old books, and I count that as a win personally.
So I'm looking at the Voltrax pictures they have in here, and I'm going to say it's still the Forge World one because I literally have one right here that's painted up that I'm looking at it, and it's almost exactly the same model. So,
yep.
Yeah, but the color plates are along the lines of the newer ones, though. I do kind of miss the old color plates where they'd break out some of the war gear and stuff like that.
Yeah,
agreed. Hey, John, can you have your book up handy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Go to page 41.
Okay. Hold
The
on a
art
second.
plate right at the top.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
loaded.
those are the conveyors. That's fine.
Yep.
Yep.
The little walking dudes right there.
That looks like one of those Skitarii Forge World kits.
Yeah.
Guys that are the Titan Guard.
Yeah, so those are the Titan Guard with the hammer grenades.
Oh, so that's what they are?
Yeah, so that's a resin upgrade kit for the plastic Skitarii. It gives them new arms, a new head, and a goofy backpack.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was two of them. There's one that was like a melee, and then there's one of them that was like a shooty one. This is the shooty one, isn't it?
Yeah, so they had in 1.0 they were like ignored line of sight haywire grenades.
Yeah.
And
it was like they looked like pikes with a grenade on, like an RPG strapped to the tip of the pike.
Oh, that's the other unit. That's the stabby ones.
Okay. I was curious about that. I didn't know those were one of the older units that had been out for a while, if those were new.
Yeah, that's one of the older ones. I mean, I wouldn't mind having more of the Skitarii because obviously don't mind using them for that and the melee guard. So it seems odd that they don't want to include some of the rest of the units.
I agree.
Well, I mean, they're pretty divergent from just the look. Like
some of them are, yeah.
Like, way steampunk.
The rust stalkers would be cool, and the cataphrons would be cool. I mean, you don't have to add the bat transports or the planes or the
Higdon boats,
the horsemen,
yeah,
the horsemen and the Batmen as well, if you don't want to. But
Stilt Cypher.
Yeah, there's definitely some odd stuff in there, but I think more is always better. I mean, even if it's going to be terrible unit choices, because it's T3.
Well, I mean, I'm not opposed to like having like upgrade kits because I mean that guy doesn't look like a normal Skitarii at all. So
yep.
I'm just kind of disappointed they only put those two squads out and they just kind of abandoned them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. Oh, well.
Sorry for the divergent tangent.
No, not at all. I'm glad we had the tangent because I don't think it was a bad thing at all.
Anyway, all right, then what else we got?
I don't think we got anything else, guys.
Have we talked about the contest? Because it's getting near.
It is.
So the next episode is the last episode. So you basically are we going to record next week, guys? The 5th, or sorry?
I thought it was episode 100.
Well, 100 is the drawings. They have to have the entries in before that.
Okay.
The entries have to be in before episode 100.
Okay.
So are we going to record next week and the week after?
Pretty sure we are.
The 29th and the 5th.
I mean, I had planned on it.
Okay, so that means since we're at 97 right now, entries should be in by the 5th of October, or the 6th of October, because that's when we're doing 99. That way we can tally everything that week, and then we'll be doing the drawing on the 13th of October, is the plan right now.
Yes.
And that drawing and contest is for Into the Death Volume 3 Collector's Edition. The way you win that is going to our Discord, joining the contest channel, and posting your favorite part of the podcast. If you are a Patreon member during the month of October, you'll also get an extra entry into the drawing. And then we'll make sure whoever gets drawn gets that book. And depends on what I find while I'm cleaning up and doing other stuff. There might be second or third place prizes.
Ooh, that'd be kind of neat.
And then next week, I'll also have a review of the Space Marine VR experience that is going around with zero latency. I've got tickets for that on the 25th this coming week. Try out, as well as talking about Warzone Houston. We'll be wrapping up next weekend as well.
And this weekend was also the Michigan GT.
Yep.
Yes, it was, and
And
hopefully
Dan-
Dan can be there.
Well, Dan was there. Maybe he'll be able to talk to us about it next week. I may
Nick
miss
and
next
Brian
week if
were there,
depending on
too.
how late Texas or Houston gets out.
Yeah, Nick and Brian
3-hour
were
drive.
also Warzone, Michigan, or Michigan GT.
Yep.
And then I know Blake and Christopher's big event in Huntsville's that first weekend in October. So,
Yep. Which is why I've got to get this stuff shipped out this week.
Yep, and don't forget we also have on the 5th we have not just Blake's event, but there's also the one up at the bar in Heresy up
Yep.
in Martinsville,
Yep.
Indiana. So we got
And
some
one
stuff
last
going
thing,
on.
Duncan, did you get your package with all the handouts for your event and stuff?
No, man, I've gotten nothing.
Okay, I'll double check on that.
I will say that I did check the tracking on it, and the absolutely wonderful post office here locally has dropped the ball for me twice. Once on this package, and once on a package of stuff that I actually sent to Seth. Seth Misley down in Houston, Texas. I was sending him a couple sets of posters, and they're currently somewhere in the ether between here and a bonfire, and I don't know where.
Yeah, we have it's like a sorting center. There's 2 different sorting centers in DFW. If it goes to one of them, it's going to be delayed for 3 days. If it goes to the other one, it's going to go straight on to you.
Yeah,
Every time.
so I don't know what's going on with the package I sent because my wife mailed it down to Seth. Like I said, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, and she doesn't have the receipt and never gave it to me, so I don't actually have a tracking number, so I don't know where those are at all. But I know I was sending him a set of posters, so if you have extra posters for the Houston event, that would probably be kind of nice if you took those with you to that and handed them some in person.
I do not. Well, I
Well,
got
who?
stickers and other freebies that I'm going to give away. Like I just got in some clippers and some other stuff.
Well,
But I think that's it for this week.
yep, sounds like it to me.
So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. I've been John. I'm joined by
Duncan.
Jack?
and Jamie.
And always remember to be accountable to yourself and to your buddies and your hobby. And we'll talk to you next week. Have a good night.
Oh, I guess I should stop the recording.
Like and subscribe, and see ya.